Hey there, everybody. Welcome to Trial Gaming. Today we have a somber topic: my debate about quitting the Yu-Gi-Oh card game. Now, I don't want this to be all negative, so we're going to go over what Yu-Gi-Oh means to me, how I came about playing it, and everything like that. So you have the backstory, as well as information and recent events that have made me come to the decision about quitting Yu-Gi-Oh, or possibly. I wanted this to kind of be an open forum, have you guys comment, but also give maybe suggestions on things that you think might make me fall in love with the game again. But let's start off first with the background. So, not to sound too, oh, I was here before, it's cool kind of, but my aunt lived in Japan. She would often send me cool things she found and thought it was really cool. And so, obviously, I loved Pokemon, I loved Digimon, I loved anime, and loved Power Rangers, loved all that stuff, right? So, she would send me stuff ahead of the curve, sometimes stuff she just found. She found a pack of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, and it was after they actually started putting them more into solid packs, like the full like Legend of Blue Eyes or whatever they're called over there, prior to us getting it. And I saw these cards, and I pulled a Dark Magician, and I thought this was the coolest thing ever. She told me what it was called, and I was kind of super excited for it. Now, this is also how, prior to it coming out here in the US, I found and discovered Duel Masters and fell in love with that card game. Duel Masters, till this day, is tied with Yu-Gi-Oh! As my favorite card games of all time. Unfortunately, Duel Masters got horribly screwed here by Wizards of the Coast, but I'm not going to get into that because I have some serious harsh feelings about it. And it's one of the reasons that I will never respect Magic the Gathering or Wizards of the Coast, is because of how Duel Masters was dealt such a bad hand. But that aside, so I got into Yu-Gi-Oh kind of before I got here, but I couldn't read the cards. It was tough. And so as I slowly started learning these cards, that's when I heard it was being released here. I only had them a couple months prior, so nothing too big, nothing too fancy. And boom, Legend of Blue Eyes, the starter decks, and from then on, I was into Yu-Gi-Oh. Well, a lot of you may not know this, but I moved almost every year of my life up until middle school. Middle school, I arrived where I live, in the city I live now, and, well, I went to a new school. Yu-Gi-Oh was the new hot thing. And when I showed up with Yu-Gi-Oh, knowing the rules, kind of knowing a lot of the stuff, because obviously I looked at the Japanese game prior to it coming to the US, I loved it. And, because I pulled that Dark Magician from a Japanese pack, I kind of fell in love with the Dark Magician cards, even though Blue Eyes was definitely superior attack-wise, and how you could summon it was easier. Flew to Summoning Dragon, boom, Blue Eyes. But it came to a point where I actually made friends because of Yu-Gi-Oh! I started knowing people. And it actually was something that was so amazing for me. Because at that point, Yu-Gi-Oh! Helped me establish relationships and friendships. And I really loved the game. Now, I kept playing, and I would play some other card games. Duel Masters, I really was competitive with that. And Yu-Gi-Oh! When Duel Masters left, I tried Magic. I collected Pokemon, I played Pokemon, but I didn't think it was as fun as Yu-Gi-Oh! But yeah, I got to a certain point with Yu-Gi-Oh! Where I was doing regionals. And I think I got, pretty good at times. Not saying I'm a top player. I wasn't ever invited to Worlds or the equivalent back then. I wasn't a champion. I never, I did get invite to something. I'm spacing now. But that was with Black Wings, which anyone with Black Wings back then, it depends on the luck of the draw. And, at the end of the day, I had a lot of good times with Yu-Gi-Oh! I loved the card game, and I enjoyed the Synchro era. It was amazing. Then Exceeds were coming out, and I had no problem with them. They looked cool. But Magic the Gathering was also introducing stuff that I really liked at that same moment. So at this point, Yu-Gi-Oh! Started to have some troubles here in Washington. A couple of the shops I knew closed down. They made some bad investments or did some stuff. I don't know the full details. But mostly what was left was Magic the Gathering. I played that for a little bit and then I decided to quit. I tried to get back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And guess what? I got back in at the worst time. An overpriced format, which, if you guys want to try to guess what it is, let me know. But, okay, it was Dragon Rules. It was Dragon Rules. And I was so priced out of it. I was like, nah, I'm good. Drop the cards. So I fully exited. I did think about entering one point with Pendulums, but all my Yu-Gi-Oh! Friends who still played the game, there was very few at this point, all were quitting the game as well. Pendulums had killed it for them. So at this point, my friends pretty much have all stopped playing Yu-Gi-Oh! And so I waited. Then, one day, I came across a YouTube video. And I loved a lot of stuff on YouTube, but I came across Yu-Gi-Oh! Again, and it just introduced link summoning. I thought that was just cool. I watched some gameplay, and it kind of took me a bit. Now, around 2019, mid to late 2019, I got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And I was enjoying link summoning, And the decks at the time were interesting. They were kind of fun. And then 2020 rolled around. I was doing online locals because I hadn't found any luck finding a locals here in Washington during 2019. So 2020, I know it was COVID, I know it was horrible, brought luck with me as I found online locals. I was playing against people. I was Drytroning, Tri-Brigade. I had fun. And at this point, it was like, yes, I'm loving the card game. Then COVID ended. Regionals, online locals kind of disappeared. I started looking back for some, and I truly could not find any. Yu-Gi-Oh! Had a couple really bad formats during this time between post-COVID and now in 2024. We're obviously in a horrible format right now. Last ban list kind of hit some cards, but Yu-Gi-Oh! Doesn't really want to solve its main problems. Generic stuff shouldn't be like links and stuff. Shouldn't have powerful effects. If you want generic links to link climb, they should have some cost to it. That's just my belief to help balance the game. But when it came down to it, I couldn't find a locals. Up until 2024, this year, I had found one locals that ran twice a month. Well, with recent Yu-Gi-Oh! Card game sales going poorly and shops talking about it online, I found myself finding a local that cut down to once a month. And the one time I went to go check it out, well, everyone was trying to play the meta because it was one time everyone who was playing decks online brought it and it wasn't a locals experience like I remember. Now, the local experience, yes, the one I'm talking about COVID-wise, had a variety of decks. I could play against a ton of different decks and had fun. That's the experience I wanted. The one locals I could find that wasn't in the middle of downtown Seattle or wasn't multiple hours away was simply just a pure sweat house. I could never do anything fun there from my initial standpoint. And that ruined my urge to even go to a locals anymore. And so my love was slowly draining. And throughout my Yu-Gi-Oh! Videos, which I have a ton of them, you probably could have seen it. And that brings us here to recent news. The WCS here in Seattle, Washington, the World Championship 2024, which is on September 7th and 8th, was announced. And I've talked about this before, but I was like, oh my God. Yu-Gi-Oh! Is bringing the World Championship here to Washington. I could go. This could be the spark that reunites my love. I could see top players play. I could do local events. I'd love, I love GOAT format. I love Edison. I love those older formats. Time Wizard formats are great. Hope they add more. And I was so excited to go. I was going to plan to make content around it. I was super excited. And then the treat that helped kill Yu-Gi-Oh! Came out. Only open to duelists qualifying to compete this year. Okay, so how would I compete? when there isn't a single way in Washington really to compete. There's only one store I think that is Yu-Gi-Oh like qualified to earn, that's an official partnered store that you can get points at, I believe. I've only ever seen one that's nearby that isn't hiking over the mountains to go to. Anyways, or driving so many hours that it just ain't worth it. But in combination of the World Championship news, the horrible formats recently, and the last ban list trying to harm stuff, but also being too cowardly to really try to change the game, has come across this point where I have been debating about quitting Yu-Gi-Oh! And let's talk about some other facts. I have a lot of series on this channel. This whole channel kind of started with Yu-Gi-Oh, but it really didn't. Originally, the first thing I uploaded was old Halo and Call of Duty gameplay, and that eventually stopped at one point when the initial setup I had, the whole thing kind of died out because of family reasons, but I kind of paused it. I always wanted to come back. So when I returned, the capture card I still had from back then worked for one moment. Then it died. A horrible death. I decided I have my camera, I still have a microphone, I have everything else. I just cannot record the gameplay. I did not have another computer yet. That's maybe why I have a 2 PC setup, so that if anything ever goes wrong with one computer, the other can still record and I can... Anyways. Yu-Gi-Oh! Kind of became that easy way to make content. I could record everything from one camera and come up with interesting ideas. And during the point, I loved making the content. I loved playing Yu-Gi-Oh! I had a good time. And you could see that in older videos. Right now, there's a number of series on this channel. Yu-Gi-Oh! Sealed Only Challenge Edition. What the Sets. Pack a Day. Maso Duel. Mystery Masochist. Virtually Pro. And some are on hiatus because of financial reasons, and I don't think that actually has an impact on Yu-Gi-Oh! But somehow, just being in it in general, I've never liked Master Duel. I always thought Master Duel was horrible. Too slow, poorly paced. Every other simulator is almost better. The only way I would play Master Duel is if they introduced a real, story mode like the old Game Boy games, where you could slowly collect cards and play against the computer or stuff like that, like the old World Championship or the old GX games. That kind of thing, I would totally do. Master Duel, not great. Probably one of my least favorite Yu-Gi-Oh! Video games of all time. Definitely bottom half, in my opinion. Now, outside of all that, and financial reasons aside about, buying physical product and all that, I could try to do simulators and other stuff. But this World Championship was something that I kind of was hoping would reunite something. And all it did was shatter what was already broken. And in combination of no real local experience, no place to officially get Yu-Gi-Oh! Points or an official Yu-Gi-Oh! Store other than one in the heart of Seattle, which is, I've been to it before for Magic Gathering. No. I'm not going to get into that store. Because it's a great store. The people there, the owners, the people who work there back when I used to go visit there were great. I love this store. It was the people, and I don't know if it's just the Magic Gathering crowd, but memories about that store is kind of But that aside, I found myself very much falling out of love with Yu-Gi-Oh! And with the number of factors, the poor state of the game, their inability to actually try to make it better, to try to actually change it, the weak ban lists, the poor handling of the World Championship. Like I said, the poor local experience is definitely I cannot stress how massive that is, because for me, the local experience was everything. Back when I played Yu-Gi-Oh!, even up to Synchro, there was 4, 5, 6 different shops within an hour's radius that I could go visit. that I could easily go experience different things, meet people. There was adults who played the game who helped teach the younger kids. There were some kids who just owned. There were some people, teenagers who were really skillful, Magic Gathering players who fell in love with Yu-Gi-Oh! And it was just such an awesome experience. And a part of me regrets not playing the Exceeds era because I really do love Exceed cards. Or, you know, you know. And for me, when they were coming out, they were called Exceed, EXCED. That's I believe the Japanese way it was pronounced. But I think they're called XYZ technically. I don't know. I've always referred to them Exceed. But it's one of those things where Yugioh, I think a part of its memories, but I also know that it's possible those memories aren't false because in 2020 with COVID, the online local experience I had through various different places, various different online discords and stuff, all had that experience. Had people playing fun decks, people playing older decks I never seen because I was out of the game for years. There was decks I was seeing that I was like, what is that thing? And they explained it to me. I was like, oh, I kind of wish I played during that era. And then, it was just, there was like a love. There was an actual community. And it made me love Yu-Gi-Oh! So much. And if I knew someone locally that could play the game and I could invite them to do content, I think that's something that would help. Outside of online people, which maybe that is a solution, trying to get people to do more Yu-Gi-Oh! Related content with and enjoy. Right now, the game is hanging by a thread for me. And, with everything I've said, guys, I want your thoughts on it. What you would do in this situation if you had no locals to speak of nearby. There was, no really way to play or experience the game other than online. And you know how the simulators can get. There's sometimes where you may not find a game at all, or you'll find the same opponent playing the same deck. And I use a couple, but at the end of the day, my love for this game is barely hanging on. And if it wasn't for the Time Wizard, the old formats, I don't know if I'd hold on to a single Yu-Gi-Oh card if I quit the game. I think that with the Time Wizard formats, I probably would. And while we can have further discussions on Yu-Gi-Oh topics, obviously let me know down in the comments, I truly want to know what you think, how you feel about the situation that I presented to you. And yeah, guys, I'm still going to have this debate with me. I think I want to talk to a couple other creators that I know, a couple other Yu-Gi-Oh players I know, and really kind of come to a decision whether I should quit the game. Now, if I do quit Yu-Gi-Oh, I think every series will effectively end, other than me maybe posting occasional Time Wizard stuff, because I do love the old Time Wizard formats, and I hope they include more. But, for now, guys, I think that's all I have to say on the subject, because if I try to go too far into it, I may lose the core crux of my conversation points and start ranting about stuff, which I probably already did anyways. But I want to thank you guys so much for watching. Please let me know what you think down below in the comments. And until next time, guys, tag out. I want to give a special thank you to all my Patreon members. Urza and Scott, you're amazing. If you guys want to check out Patreon and join it to get a shout out at the end, check Patreon down in the link description below. And you can also, like Scott did, make me re-record this.